Start with a powerful statement that immediately grabs attention. I never thought that a simple family vacation would turn into the most humiliating moment of my life, and the most triumphant. My name is Rebecca Martinez, and I'm about to tell you how an entitled HOA president tried to destroy my daughter's dignity at 30,000 feet, and how karma served her the coldest dish of justice I've ever witnessed. Immediately introduce your daughter with love and specificity. My daughter Emma is 12 years old, and she's the brightest light in my world. She has cerebral palsy, which means she uses a specialized wheelchair and sometimes needs a little extra help with everyday tasks. But let me tell you something about Emma. This girl has more courage in her little finger than most adults have in their entire body. She's a straight-A student, she volunteers at our local animal shelter, and she has this infectious laugh that can light up any room. Her disability has never defined her, until someone tried to make it define her on Flight 847 to Orlando. Create relatability and context. We had been planning this trip for 8 months. Emma had been accepted into a special summer program at Disney World for kids with disabilities, a program that only accepts 50 children nationwide. My husband David and I had saved every penny. We booked the tickets, reserved the hotel, and Emma had a countdown calendar on her bedroom wall. She crossed off each day with a purple marker, her favorite color. The night before our flight, she could barely sleep. She kept asking me if Mickey Mouse would really know sign language like the brochure said. I promised her he would. I promised her this would be the trip of a lifetime. I had no idea how right I would be, just not in the way I imagined. Make the villain realistic but detestable. We arrived at the airport 3 hours early because traveling with Emma's equipment always requires extra time. The check-in went smoothly. Security was actually wonderful. They had a TSA agent named Marcus who made Emma laugh by pretending her wheelchair was a race car. Everything was perfect, until we got to the gate. That's where we met Patricia Hendricks. I'll never forget her name. She was sitting in the priority boarding area, wearing a cream-colored pantsuit that probably cost more than our entire vacation budget. She had this perfectly styled silver hair and wore a gold pin that said Sunset Meadows HOA President. She was on her phone, speaking loudly enough for everyone to hear about how she had just dealt with a family in her neighborhood who dared to paint their mailbox the wrong shade of beige. Build the conflict gradually. When the gate agent called for families with young children and passengers needing assistance to board, I wheeled Emma toward the gate. That's when Patricia stood up and physically stepped in front of us. "Excuse me," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Priority boarding is for first-class passengers and elite members. You'll need to wait for your zone." I felt my face flush. "Ma'am, they just called for passengers needing assistance. My daughter uses a wheelchair." Patricia's eyes traveled down to Emma, and I saw something flicker across her face. Not sympathy, not understanding. It was disgust. She actually took a step back like Emma was contagious. "I understand that," she said, emphasizing the word that like Emma was an object, not a person. "But there are protocols, standards. If we let everyone board early just because they claim to need assistance, the whole system falls apart." Show the mother's restraint and the daughter's awareness. I felt Emma's hand grip mine. She knew. Kids with disabilities always know when someone is looking at them differently. My daughter, who had been bouncing with excitement just moments before, went completely quiet. "Emma has cerebral palsy," I said, keeping my voice steady even though I wanted to scream. "She legitimately needs extra time to board. The airline specifically called for us." Patricia crossed her arms. "I've been flying for 35 years, and I've seen every excuse in the book. In my HOA, we have rules for a reason. Maybe if parents didn't try to game the system with their special situation children, we wouldn't have these problems." Special situation children. Those 3 words hung in the air like poison. I heard gasps from other passengers. Emma's hand was trembling in mine now. "Bring in unexpected allies." A young man in a military uniform, couldn't have been more than 25, stood up. "Ma'am, I think you need to step aside," he said to Patricia, his voice firm but controlled. Patricia whirled around. "And who are you to tell me what to do, young man?" He didn't flinch. "Corporal James Chen, ma'am. And I'm telling you that you're holding up passengers who have every right to board, including this young lady." Patricia's face turned red. "How dare you speak to me that way? I am the president of one of the most prestigious HOAs in Arizona. I know the airline's CEO personally." A gate agent, a woman named Lisa, I learned later, rushed over. "Ma'am, please step aside. This family has boarding priority." But Patricia wasn't done. Oh no, she was just getting started. Maximum tension before the plane. Patricia pulled out her phone. "I'm calling my attorney right now. This is disability discrimination against me. I have a documented anxiety condition, and seeing situations like this triggers my stress. I should be boarding first for my mental health. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was actually trying to use a mental health excuse to discriminate against my daughter. Emma was crying now, silent tears rolling down her cheeks. That's when something inside me snapped, not into anger, into crystal clear determination. "You know what, Patricia?" I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You're absolutely right. You should board first. You clearly need more help than my daughter, because Emma might use a wheelchair, but you have something far more crippling. You have a heart that doesn't work at all." Make them think the confrontation is over. Security finally intervened. Patricia was allowed to board in her first-class seat. We boarded with the assistance group. I thought it was over. I was wrong. As we made our way down the aisle, I saw Patricia in seat 2A, already sipping champagne. She made eye contact with me and smirked. Actually smirked. We got to our seats, 24B and 24C. I helped Emma transfer from her wheelchair, which the flight attendants stored. David was meeting us in Orlando. He had flown out 2 days earlier for a work conference. It was just Emma and me. I held her hand as the plane filled up. She had stopped crying, but she was so quiet. My vibrant, joyful daughter had been dimmed by that woman's cruelty. And with a massive hook, the cabin doors closed. The flight attendants began their safety demonstration. I thought the worst was behind us. Then, about 10 minutes after takeoff, I heard the call button. Ding, ding, ding. Someone was pressing it repeatedly, aggressively. I heard a flight attendant's voice, strained with patience. "Ma'am, how can I help you?" And then I heard Patricia's voice, loud and demanding. "There's a situation in the back of the plane that's making me very uncomfortable. I saw that disabled child board and I'm concerned about safety protocols. What if there's an emergency? What if her condition puts the rest of us at risk? I demand you speak to the captain immediately." My blood ran cold. Emma looked up at me with those wide, terrified eyes. "Mommy, is she talking about me?" I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do, but I was about to find out that sometimes the universe has a plan. Start immediately with action. The head flight attendant, her name tag read Jennifer Santos, came walking down the aisle with purpose, but she wasn't looking at us. She stopped at row 2. "Ma'am, I need you to lower your voice," Jennifer said firmly. "You're disturbing other passengers." Patricia's voice got even louder. "I will not lower my voice. I paid for a first-class ticket, and I expect first-class treatment. That means not having to worry about people who shouldn't be flying." Jennifer's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, every passenger on this aircraft has been cleared to fly. I'm going to ask you one more time to please calm down." "I will not calm down. Get me your captain. Get me someone with actual authority." The entire cabin had gone silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Emma was squeezing my hand so tight. I whispered to her, "It's okay, baby. We didn't do anything wrong." But inside, I was terrified. What if they made us get off the plane? What if Emma's dream trip was ruined before it even started? Introduce the ultimate authority figure. That's when I heard a voice over the intercom. Deep, calm, authoritative. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Rodriguez speaking. We're going to be holding our position for just a few moments. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened." My heart sank. They were delaying the flight. Because of us. Because of Emma. I felt tears burning in my eyes. But then something unexpected happened. The cockpit door opened and out stepped Captain Rodriguez. He was probably in his 50s with gray at his temples and pilot's wings on his uniform. But what I noticed most was his expression. He wasn't angry. He was focused, determined. He walked directly to first class. "Ms. Hendricks," he said. He knew her name. "I understand you have concerns about one of our passengers." Patricia practically jumped out of her seat. Finally, someone who understands protocol. "Yes, Captain, I have serious concerns about that disabled child in 24C. In my position as an HOA president, I'm trained to identify potential liabilities and..." The captain reveals his hand. Captain Rodriguez held up his hand. "Ma'am, I'm going to stop you right there. I've been a pilot for 28 years. I've flown over 4 million miles. I've handled medical emergencies, mechanical failures, and severe weather. But you know what I've never had to handle? A passenger who believes they have the authority to determine who belongs on my aircraft based on their physical abilities." The cabin was dead silent. Patricia's face went white, then red. I have rights as a passenger." "You do," Captain Rodriguez agreed. "And so does every single person on this plane, including the 12-year-old girl in 24C who has more courage than you've shown today." I couldn't breathe. Emma looked up at me with wide eyes. Did he just defend her? The captain continued. "I have a daughter myself. Her name is Sophia. She's 14 and she has Down syndrome. So when someone like you decides that children with disabilities are liabilities or safety concerns, it's not just professional for me, it's personal." Drop the major twist. Patricia was sputtering now. This is This is outrageous. I know people. I'll have your job. Captain Rodriguez smiled. Not a warm smile, but one of complete control. You mentioned you know the airline's CEO. That's interesting, because the CEO, Mr. Richard Campbell, is my brother-in-law. We have family dinner every Sunday. I'll be sure to mention this conversation to him. The color drained from Patricia's face. Now, the captain continued, let me explain how this is going to work. You have two choices. Choice 1, you apologize to the young lady in 24C and her mother. You sit quietly for the remainder of this flight. You never harass another passenger based on disability again. Choice 2, we return to the gate. You are removed from this aircraft. Your name goes on a list, and I personally ensure that you never fly with this airline again. Patricia's mouth opened and closed like a fish. You can't do that. Ma'am, I'm the captain of this aircraft. While we're in the air, I have more authority than most judges, and even on the ground, I can absolutely refuse to fly with a passenger I deem disruptive. So, what's it going to be? Show the hollow victory. Patricia stood up, her hands shaking. She walked down the aisle toward us. Every eye in the cabin was on her. When she reached our row, she couldn't even look at Emma. I apologize, she muttered, the words clearly choking her, for any misunderstanding. It wasn't sincere. It wasn't heartfelt. But you know what? I didn't care about her apology. What I cared about was what happened next. Captain Rodriguez, who had followed her down the aisle, knelt down beside Emma's seat. Hi there, he said gently. What's your name? Emma's voice was small. Emma. Emma, that's a beautiful name. My daughter Sophia wanted me to give you something. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small pair of pilot wings, the kind they give to kids. Sophia collects these from every flight I take, but she told me before I left this morning that if I met someone brave today, I should give them her favorite pair. And Emma, you are the bravest passenger I've ever had. Maximum emotional impact. Emma took those wings with trembling hands. Then she did something that made the entire cabin erupt. She smiled, that huge, beautiful Emma smile, and said, "Can you tell Sophia thank you, and that I think she's brave too?" I watched this hardened pilot, this man who had flown through literal storms, get tears in his eyes. "I will tell her," he said. "I absolutely will." Then he stood up and addressed the whole cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the delay, but I want to make something crystal clear. This airline, and this crew, and this captain will always stand with passengers who deserve dignity and respect. That includes Emma. That includes every person on this aircraft. That includes my daughter Sophia. And if anyone has a problem with that, they are welcome to take the next flight." The cabin erupted in applause, not polite golf claps, real, thunderous applause. Corporal Chen started it. The gate agent, Lisa, who had apparently boarded to ensure everything was okay, was clapping. Passengers were standing up. Patricia slunk back to her seat like a scolded dog. Tie up the story with real consequences. The flight to Orlando was perfect after that. Flight attendants kept checking on Emma, bringing her extra snacks and juice. Passengers stopped by to say hello. A woman from row 18 gave Emma a stuffed Mickey Mouse she'd bought at the airport. Corporal Chen came back and taught Emma a special military salute. When we landed, Captain Rodriguez made another announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've arrived in Orlando. Before you deplane, I want to give a special shout out to Miss Emma Martinez, who reminded us all today what true courage looks like. Emma, enjoy Disney World. You've earned it." More applause. But here's where the story gets even better. 3 weeks later, I received a letter. It was from Richard Campbell. Yes, the CEO. He had personally heard about the incident from Captain Rodriguez. The letter said that Patricia Hendricks had been banned from the airline, permanently. But more than that, the airline was implementing new mandatory training for all staff about disability awareness, inspired by Emma's experience. They asked if Emma would be willing to be part of a promotional campaign about inclusive travel. My 12-year-old daughter, the girl who had been called a liability, became the face of compassion. Show long-term change. Here's what Patricia didn't understand that day. Disability isn't a deficit, it's a difference. And differences make the world richer, more beautiful, more real. Emma taught me that. She teaches everyone who meets her. 6 months after our flight, I got a message through Facebook. It was from Patricia's neighbor, someone who lived in that precious HOA she presided over. They told me that after the airline incident went viral, Yes, several passengers had posted about it. The HOA board had voted Patricia out of her position. Apparently, when you're known nationally as the airplane Karen who bullied a disabled child, people don't really want you representing their community anymore. But the best part of this story isn't Patricia's downfall. It's what happened to Emma. That little girl who had been so crushed, so diminished by one person's cruelty, became unstoppable. She started a YouTube channel about disability advocacy. She spoke at her school about inclusion. She wrote a letter to our state representative about accessibility laws. And every single night, she wears those pilot wings to bed. She calls them her brave wings. End with a message that resonates. I'll leave you with this. Captain Rodriguez told me something before we deplaned that day. He said, "The measure of a society isn't how it treats its most powerful members, it's how it treats its most vulnerable." Emma isn't vulnerable because of her cerebral palsy. She's vulnerable because people like Patricia exist, but she's also protected because people like Captain Rodriguez exist. People like Corporal Chen exist. People like you, watching this video, hearing this story, exist. So the next time you see someone being cruel to a person with a disability, or any person who's different, I want you to remember Emma. Remember her smile. Remember her brave wings. And ask yourself, am I going to be a Patricia or am I going to be a Captain Rodriguez? Because the world is watching, and the choice is always, always yours. Thank you for listening to our story. And please, if you learned something today, share this video, because Emma's bravery deserves to change the world.